And we will begin. Good afternoon, everyone. Once again, I'm Ed DeVeaux. I'm president of the New Jersey CannaBusiness Association. Welcome to our weekly Lunch and Learn series, where we try to bring the best of the best in conversations about the cannabis industry, not just from a social justice standpoint, but from a commerce standpoint. I'm proud to be the president of New Jersey's first and largest trade association, developed for the establishment of a responsible, sustainable, diverse, and profitable cannabis industry in New Jersey. And I have two very, very special guests with me today. So before we get to our guests, I do have a slight digression. There was a lot in the news in the last couple of weeks, especially around the Olympics. Look, I'm not one for pet peeves. I try not to be too sensitive about issues, but since being as involved as I am in the cannabis industry, I really do understand the history of how we got here. And I do, whenever I speak publicly, I'm very clear in terms of the history and the development of the policies on how we got here. And so when I share with people, whether it's in academia or in a professional setting, the notion that cannabis was criminalized, not for public safety reasons, not for public health reasons, but it was criminalized because it was a substance of choice for Negroes, for Mexicans, jazz musicians, and you know how the story goes. And so this week, as I read the news, as I often do, a couple of really divergent headlines caught my attention. We're all familiar with Ms. Richardson, how she was actually left off of the Olympic team for use of cannabis, which, by the way, it is not a performance enhancing substance. We all know that. She was using it for medicinal purposes, and yet because of the archaic rules and regulations that the IOC uses, she could not compete in the Olympics. At the same time, and of course all roads leading to Jersey, a New Jersey fencer from Montclair, New Jersey, accused not once, not twice, but 3 times for sexual misconduct, is not kicked off the team. He's just placed in a different housing environment. So he gets to go to Tokyo. So I bring that up to raise this issue. Thank you, April. I want us all to remain cognizant that as we look at the commercial value of cannabis, and as we all are striving for the commercial, not only value, but commercial reliability and sustainability, that we can't forget how we got here to begin with. And so when we talk about no one left behind, which is today's theme, I can think of 2 people that I would rather be sitting with me. And I do see others that are in the chat feature. Felix Flores from the Essex County Latino Chamber. I also see my colleague on the board, Dr. Marianne Bays. And I do want to welcome this afternoon Ms. Loretta Winters, the president of the Gloucester NAACP and chair of the Women's Caucus of the NAACP in the state, and Ms. Nichelle Pace. Nichelle is the vice president of the Camden Business Association, as well as the chair of the City of Camden's Cannabis Commission. Ladies, I want to welcome you both to today's Lunch and Learn. When we talk about the issue of no one left behind and the issues around business and being fair and fairness, I think that the headlines that I shared with everyone speak to the conditions of fairness. And so as we look at businesses and how we're to treat small businesses, and Nichelle, at some point I do want you to share your thoughts on the legacy market, but Loretta, let's begin with you. You've been with the NAACP, you've been at the forefront of social justice and equity issues for a long time and doing wonderfully. And again, I can't thank you enough for all that you do. for the state. So as we look at small businesses, and you and I have had the conversation, in fact, I've been blessed to participate with you on your commercial ventures, on how you try to reach young people and get them business focused and policy focused. So if you want to just share some thoughts on where we go and how we attempt to do our best to not leave anyone behind.
Well, it looked like we left Miss Richardson behind. That's a perfect example of leaving someone behind. It is when we talk about marijuana and businesses and focusing on the small minority businesses in America, it has always been difficult, whether we want to open up a store, whether we want to open up a boutique, or whatever we want to do. We always find pushback from so many sources, whether it's financing, finding the right place, it just getting the support. It has always been difficult. Now we're in an industry that's looking us in the face. Too many of our white counterparts and people we know have made millions off of putting our people in jail. It is, the jails have been at capacity for about 100% capacity, and they keep putting us in jail for minor offenses such as marijuana possession. Now there is an opportunity that we fought hard for. We fought hard for to make that change, to bring a good argument before the legislators, before the doctors, because we were the ones who were being condemned. Now we're being left behind again because we don't have the hundreds of millions of dollars to start a business. We don't have that. And I'm so glad that I'm part of a group and support a group like the New Jersey CannaBusiness Association, because we are the watchdogs. We need the watchdogs in the industry to make sure that legislation goes through, not just to approve it for medicinal purposes or recreational purposes, but to make sure that within the law, that they have things that go back to our communities, the communities they have harmed for hundreds of years, and especially over the past 100 years with this marijuana. It is, we have to be on the forefront. We have to build relationships with our legislators. We have to make sure, and whenever I talk about it, I always talk about the vote. We have to make sure we're there voting, to put people in that have like minds in the legislators, who's going to make sure that the laws are tweaked, and that we are always there to make sure that something goes back to our communities. And what I'm trying to say is that too many times, and it's almost to a point where we're just sick and tired of saying it over and over again. Why? Why do we have to fight for every little thing that we do? And then as soon as we take one step forward, they want to throw us back 2 steps backwards. It's got to stop. And we're here in the year 2021 to say it's going to stop. We have no other choice. It's either that, it's about survival at this point. We're not looking for any welfare. We don't want any handouts. But what we do want is some strong legislation to make sure it goes back to our community. And we also have to talk about, and something else that I want to talk about, we don't actually need to get into the business of open up a dispensary. We don't actually need to get into the business of selling it, but we can get into some of the ancillary businesses that support those businesses. And that's where millions and millions of dollars are being made up in those businesses. We have to look at the whole picture, not just the one piece, but the whole thing. It's almost like they always talk about the gold rush of the late 1800s, where people were rushing, going out there for gold. But the people who really made the money were the people who were selling the shovels, the picks, the dynamite. those were the people, and they didn't have anything to do with the goal, but they were selling those products to support that industry. And these are some of the things that I'd like to talk about today when we talk about small businesses and no one left behind, because we need to look at other things that we can get into to support our community. And we know that when we're in business, we're gonna hire people who look like us. One of the things I did find out is that a lot of minorities don't necessarily like to get into business, or a little skeptical about it, because you're talking about marijuana, you're talking about, they don't know if it's a setup that they want us to get in there, and then next thing you know, they're going to close you down once you invest all your life savings and things in it. So, we have to make sure that they're comfortable, and anyone who wants to get into business is very comfortable that these things aren't going to happen to them. They're not going to be jailed. They're not going to get shut down. So, these are some of the things that we have to put in place and educate the community. Don't be afraid. It's about, we need to step up right now and not be fearful of those things.
Right.
Because as a group, we're better when we stick together as a group for the same cause.
Thank you so much, Loretta. You touched on so many wonderful points. So first, I'm going to digress because I get so excited when I start this program. I do want to say, as is my practice, I am at Sophie's Bistro in Somerset, New Jersey, Franklin Township, New Jersey. It is a French bistro, French-infused cuisine on Hamilton Street in Franklin. Beautiful setup behind me. I want to thank Peter, the proprietor, Peter Mack, the proprietor, Debbie, who is managing today, who got me all set up. So I am here at Sophie's Bistro. If you are ever in the mood for French cuisine, this is the place to be. So on your points, and this is going to be a great segue, Loretta, into Nichelle's piece. When we talk about the business, right, and people are afraid sometimes, you're right. There's always almost like an inherent skepticism on getting involved in legitimate business practices, because we're fearful of the unfair type of the unfair scrutiny, if you will, like Ms. Richardson faced. And so, Nichelle, you've been doing an excellent job in the city of Camden. For so long, Camden had been the butt of many jokes, especially as it pertained to commerce. And now here we are, and Kelly, thank you for the Green Rush reference. So now here we are at the point of the Green Rush, and Camden, which used to be the butt of jokes, I understand people are now banging down your door, trying to get your attention, Nichelle, as to how can I come to Camden? And so we don't want to get left behind, because at one time we used to be the police activity. Now people are looking at Camden as the commercial center for South Jersey. So give us some insights as to the benefits of the Camden Business Association and what your commission is doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited to be here with everyone today and have the partnership of this Economic Justice Coalition, and see some of our other partners in the chat as well. But first and foremost, let me just say, this moment is not lost on us here in the city of Camden. As we talked about what's been happening, as Ms. Loretta just laid out what we've gone through for 100 years, we have a lot of ground to cover. I'm still pretty much insulted that so much money has been made on the backs of our pain. And it didn't just stop with Black and brown people, moving into current decades, that ended up in the middle and the poor white communities. Now we have 86% of our needle exchange and our opioid addicts on the streets in Camden are white people. So this has legs into so many challenges and issues that we need to heal and recoup from, that goes back generations. Our generational wealth is at stake. Our poverty rate in Camden, even though we're doing great development and making great strides, this pandemic has compounded that and raised it to 36%. So we're trying to not just play catch up from the economic downside of a pandemic, but now we're trying to also capitalize on the economic potential that we can filter back into our communities and heal. We're taking a healing approach with the commission to make sure that so much that was lost in terms of family structure, financial structure, all the things that had been lost over the past 100 years, we need to start trying to recoup some of that back. So we're taking the approach of equitable policy. I don't believe in, I know a lot of people may disagree, but I know folks are, putting in their ordinances fast just so they have it and say, we'll put the equity in on amendment. I don't agree in equity on amendment. Sorry, not sorry. I just don't. I think it's not for people of color and not for communities of color. Equity on amendment usually never happens the way it needs to happen. Equity has to start first in the policy. So if that means we got to take an extra 6 weeks to get our opt-in ordinance in, that means we got to take an extra 6 weeks because we need to start with equity. And it has to be a good chunk, at least 60 to 70% of the equity we want needs to be in the first reading of that ordinance. And then if we want to amend and add other pieces and programs to it, we can. But I do not believe on just putting an ordinance up for an opt-in just to say we're opted in and we could add the pieces later. I don't. That's not going to benefit any community of color ever, doing it by amendment. And with that said, we are definitely looking to, piggybacking off the earlier discussion on the ancillary businesses, not just ancillary, but what about hemp? The industrial manufacturing, the materials, Camden was once a hub for things such as manufacturing. We are a port city. We have access to so much. We're right across the pond from Europe. So there's huge upside here in the city to be located here. I recognize that. I'm trying to make sure my committee and the city administration recognizes that, and we need to be thoughtful about it. We don't want to just jump at the first pretty girl that winks at us. That's not going to cut it. We need something that's going to be not just sustainable, but that's actually going to change the direction of the economics in our city. 99.6% of the businesses in New Jersey are small businesses. We provide 50% of the jobs in this state. So it's important that the small and diverse businesses are counted, not just for the various classes of licenses, but also for the additional services, goods that can come from that. And then those surrounding business that can leverage some of that foot traffic. So this is an all-out effort. And then to bring in the next generation, STEM careers, our next geneticists. It's not lost on me that science is a big thing. Science and math is a big thing in our community and has been for generations. We've been on the forefront of some of the biggest scientific discoveries in the United States throughout our history. Especially on the health side of things, whether it be, the pacemaker, the street light, there's all kinds of things that we have created. And I want to bring that innovation and ingenuity back to our communities to think about other ways that may not directly reflect touching the plant, but there's other ways around this business and looking at it more holistically that we can then increase our economics and our potential.
Thank you so much for those thoughts. It's interesting. Science and tech are clearly something that should be always in our vocabulary and in our academic missions. Let's continue to focus on the small business aspect, because one of the other catalysts for today's discussion was an email and chat feature discussion. So once again, if you're in the chat feature, please make sure that you click that you're communicating with everyone. Please share your websites, your LinkedIn, your email, so that we can continue to network. But a conversation I had from two Black women that are attorneys, I'm going to give them a shout out, Peggy Bruges and Rosalind Charles. They made sure to reach out to me, and we had the conversation. Look, it's not just about the big companies. There are a lot of major law firms out there. We know who they are, right? They're in South Jersey. They are in the counties, Burlington County, Camden County, Gloucester County. You've got the big firms politically connected. And when we look at the cannabis case and looking to get the law firm to help us with our licenses, oftentimes we overlook the small firms, the minority-owned firms. And so I do want to give them a shout out because they did bring to mind the fact that just because they're not as big as maybe our sponsors doesn't mean that they can't do the job. So I encourage those law firms, those legal representatives that are participating today. Maybe you have a cannabis practice, maybe you don't, but feel free to reach out to some of these other law firms that may be smaller, that may be minority owned, and give them a piece of your pie. They could certainly help you along. And certainly they bring a different perspective to your law firm as well. So Ms. Loretta, coming back to the small minority, and I do like the mention on STEM, you've done a lot of work with young people. If you could share the resource for the industry. So again, we have a lot of people that are participating in today, that have participated. They're looking to put together teams. Mm-hmm. Young people are a resource, and we're talking that 18, 21 and above. Share some of the things that you've done. And again, I thank you for allowing me to participate in some of your conferences, just so that we understand what a great resource we have in young people.
Yeah, and with the NAACP and the other organizations that I belong to, Salvation and Social Justice, we have done an amazing job in getting the information out there to the public, and anyone who wants to get some more direct information in full form. My email address is lwinters with an S, WINTERS 1010 @gmail.com. Again, my email is lwinters1010 @gmail.com. Thank you, Carla. But we have been working with the youth. We've been trying to educate the youth. We have been having seminars prior to COVID and during COVID to talk about marijuana reform and what needs to be done within the community and how they can help. We've been talking to the colleges, basically Rowan College here in Gloucester County. We have Dr. Stanley Yadell, who is a professor over there, who's assisting us in getting the youth together and bringing them into our meetings and talking about how you can get into different businesses, how you can get support. Another thing I'd like to do along with Edmund is to get a directory together. Even some of the things he talked about, giving some of the businesses to some of the smaller law firms who can do the job just as well, if not better, at a better cost. And plus you're supporting, again, our community. This is what it's all about, taking our dollars and transferring our wealth back into our community at least 7-8 times before it goes out. Then we know we're successful. And we have to have that plan. And we have to make sure that we have a list of people that we can go to. Consultants, sometimes something as simple as a consultant to go to. How do I start up? I have the money. I have the desire, I have the passion, I have the people. I just need to get my plan. I need someone to help mentor me through this. And that's what a consultant is. It's like your mentor. They'll walk you right through every aspect until you are successful. We have that. We have those people. And we want to be able to share that, because our vision is that we want our communities to benefit off of this. For so long, we have been driven in the ground because of it. We know people who have been incarcerated with that 3 strikes and you're outlaw. They would have grams, 3-4 grams on them, and they're doing 10 to 20. That's the insanity of it. It has destroyed our community, where certain other people who have 3 or 4 grams on them, they get a slap on their wrist and sent home. Their lives are not ruined. Their jobs aren't ruined. Their housing is not affected. You know, something as little as getting food on the table is not affected, but it has affected our community so greatly. Now, we've been telling them all this time that it's not a dangerous drug. It's not a drug, or it's not even a drug. You can't even put it in that category. But it's, now that we have an opportunity to change it, and we have, it's almost like we're being left out. But as I said earlier, that's not going to happen. You know, as long as you have people like the NAACP, people like Nichelle, who's working with the community greatly, and people like Edmund, DeVeaux with the Cannabis Association for New Jersey, we're going to make sure. This is what these weekly calls are about. This weekly conversation is about, to let everyone know that there are so many things that we can do and be a part of to be successful just in this one avenue. I have a granddaughter who's going to Western University right now for biology. It's a PhD program, that track that she's going in as a freshman. It's going to be very difficult for her, but these are some of the things that we're trying to get our youth involved in. Like you said, the STEM, the biology. And even as much as selling the papers and different things that go along with it, the marketing part of it, it's just amazing and mind-boggling what we can do. And you know, I've been sitting down over the past month just working out different categories and different businesses, so that you can look at a chart and say, that's what I want to do. I want to get into this part of it. It's open up opportunity for the general public at large. We need banks on our side. We need banks that are going to give us low interest loans, you know, for reparation. When you talk about reparation in each one of the states, nationally, we need to get together and talk about which banks are going to be able to give us low interest rates, which credit unions, not just banks, but credit unions and other financial institutions, who is going to assist us and give us a good plan that we can work out, and what legislators we can work with to tweak the laws to make sure those things are in there. Part of the plan too is your diversity plan when you come up. That should be a mandatory thing, especially for the bigger ones that can afford those tens and $100,000 license. What is your diversity plans? That should be in the law, that I'm going to hire X amount. I'm going to do this. I'm going to take so much a part of my profit invested back into the community. These are so many avenues that it's mind-boggling what we can do. There's just the sky's the limit.
Right. That's so true. So true. Thank you once again. In fact, it's funny. What it does bring to mind are some of the questions that I saw in the chat feature. So for example, there's a confusion between how you actually get a license. I see some people asking the question, how do I get a license in Camden? Or how do I get a license in Trenton? Remember, everyone, the licenses are issued by the state. The licenses are issued by the state. We are waiting for the application processes to be developed. So right now, we're waiting for the RFAs, the requests for applications from the state. Thank you, Chanel. So licenses are issued by the state, but you have to wait for the application process. What we oftentimes refer to is the fact that you need a host community. You need the community, the municipality, to have zoned for your operation and approved it. So without these things, you can't even apply for the license. And so be careful when you hear people talking to you about, well, I'm giving you or pursue a license, and you're not getting it at the local level. So please be careful about that. Another interesting point, and Nichelle, then I'm going to turn it over to you so that we can get some closing thoughts, because you've got some great ideas about what social justice and licensing looks like. The point of, again, small businesses and how we get this industry to work for all of us. There is no good economic policy without social justice or social equity. You need those things in order to have good economic policy. And so as we get ready to close, and I'll close with Nichelle's comments, but please do, as Loretta mentioned, look at joining the NAACP. Stay in tune, stay abreast of what's going on. Look at joining either a local chapter or the state chapter. And this is for everyone. You just don't have to be a person of color. So it's important. Just as we encourage you to join the New Jersey CannaBusiness Association, we are in fact going to be a resource for many people. As you see in today's chat feature, I see so many people making connections, and that's what we're about. We are, in essence, the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce for the state of New Jersey. Yes. So we encourage you to join and be part of our network. So Nichelle, just in terms of some closing thoughts, I know once again, as it pertains to small businesses, some social justice issues, and getting into the industry, I love one of our last conversations. I visited you in Camden, so please share some of those thoughts.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for those just real quick in the chat, I did put my email address. I also put links if you're in Camden. I put links to the schedule for our ad hoc committee meetings. I also put a link if you just go to the city council page on the Camden City's website and look on the left for ad hoc committee, all the links are there. Add previous meetings, our minutes, agendas, those types of things. So make sure you click there, and I'll also put my email in the chat for those that were interested. But just to jump on to what you're referring to, Ed, it goes back to equity, reparations, and healing what was harmed. We have a collective PTSD that Ms. Loretta spoke about earlier, about our apprehensive, the way we are in terms of how we approach business, because of course we have PTSD. We've been burnt for the past 400 years in this country. So, there's also a mind shift we have to do within our own communities, that it's even okay. I mean, 3 years ago, people didn't even really want to have these discussions in public in Camden at all, when we were trying to brief legislators and those types of things. So even though we would have workshops and within Camden and Camden County, it was very hard to get these discussions out into the open. But we knew that we still had to be a voice for the city, myself and our president, Ray Jones, because there was nobody being that voice to make sure that communities like Camden were considered. So with that said, when you talk about getting into this industry, if you do want to have a license, or if you do want to have a dispensary or distribution warehouse, and distribution is something all should think about. But if you want to get into that space, we have to challenge the legislators and the CRC and the large companies that are already here to break those barriers. That means everything from if you're already here and you have a medical dispensary, you should have a diverse small business procurement outsourcing plan, period. If you are legacy market, this was built on their backs. I don't want to just see loans. That's great. But what about grants? What about technical workshops? To be honest, they shouldn't have to pay a dime. Mm-hmm. To be honest, those that were harmed shouldn't have to pay a dime. But we know that's not the reality. With that said, some of that impact zone money, how you do your taxes and your municipal fees for applications, that needs to go back into programs where we can actually give one-on-one technical assistance to our legacies first, and then get into our small and diverse business owners and entrepreneurs, but to our legacies first. We can even come up with a way where we have our own quote unquote LBE, Legacy Business Enterprise Certification, where once you've been identified as a legacy, you get in a program, you do your 3 to 6 months in the entrepreneur program. Once you complete that, you get your certification and you get a grant that covers 50 to 75% of your license. That's the things I want to see. Those are the things that are going to bring the wealth back to our community. We shouldn't be coming out of pocket for anything. That's the reality of it. And a lot of people, I'm unapologetic about it because we only got one time to get this right. We shouldn't have to come out of pocket for anything. And any leader of color, whether you're of color or not of color, if you have influence in these spaces, and you're talking about regulations and rules and community benefits agreements and social justice, if you're not talking about ways to give back that demolishes the economic barriers for people of color to get into this space, you're not doing your job. We have to break the barriers. We have to break the barriers from procurement. We have to break the barriers in the application process. Yes, we need to put in our sweat equity, but we've already put our sweat, blood, tears, and money into this over generations of our people. But yes, we need to train our folks. So I would love to see an idea of a legacy certification, legacy business certification that's only just for our legacies, that puts them through an intensive program that gives them all the skills they need to help them figure out which type of business they want to either open or get into. Maybe it's just workforce development and they get a license as a legacy grower or a legacy geneticist. However, it can be both on the business side and the workforce development side. But after that, then there should be, after they put in the time to learn the ins and outs of the business side, which is obviously necessary to any business you do, they should then get, some support for their grant application instead of trying to, hire consultants for $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. I think some of that stuff is kind of ridiculous. People have, like you said, people have made millions. It's just getting to Jersey, and people that have made millions on this, while so many of us are still in jail, still to this very day. And that's unacceptable to me. And the conversation will always be this every time I have it. And the conversation needs to always be this. Before, even on a CRC meeting I testified on, they said, one of the commissioners mentioned, when I talked about grants, like, shouldn't people have sweat equity? We have sweat equity. What do you mean, shouldn't they have sweat equity? Have you not been paying attention to the past 60 years? We have more than sweat equity. You will kind of owe us, to be honest with you, to be honest. So it's just a fact. We have to stop thinking about how much we can charge people, especially in our communities, and start thinking on how we can lessen any fees. So our barrier, the legacy barrier, should be the lowest, and the communities that have been disparaged should be the lowest in terms of fees. There should be grants and funding that goes to that do not have any strings attached to it. And especially with things like the CARES money coming down on top of what's coming here for cannabis, there's enough money to make those things happen. We just have to actually put it in writing and put it into policy.
Nichelle, couldn't be said better. I want to thank you so much for everything. I want to thank today's panelists. I want to thank Loretta Winters, president of the Gloucester NAACP and the chair of the Women's Issues Network of the NAACP. I want to thank Nichelle Pace, who is the vice chair of the Camden Business Association and the chair of the Camden Cannabis Commission. I want to thank you both so much. I want to thank Sophie's Bistro in Somerset, New Jersey on Hamilton Street. French infused cuisine, lovely place. By all means, I want to thank our sponsors. So please forgive me. Again, I get so excited when I look forward to today's conversation, but I do want to thank our sponsors. That's Burton, Trent Public Affairs, the law firm of Inglesino, Webster, Wyciskala, and Taylor. I want to thank Curaleaf. I want to thank Puffin Entrepreneurs and Investors, HBK, our CPAs, Argus 365 Security, Eaze. Thank Eaze so much, because Eaze is one of those corporations that did in fact help out Jersey's own Leo Bridgewater by investing in him and his cannabis interests. I also want to thank the union, UFCW, the United Food and Commercial Workers, UFCW, Hugh Giordano, and lastly, Garden State Greenhouse. I want to thank everyone for joining us. I believe we do now have him ready. So we had some technical difficulties, but I'd like to thank everyone for joining. Let's hear it for Jay, Silent Night. Jay, you can take us home.
Hey, thank you so much. Wow, that was amazing. First of all, Miss Nichelle Pace and Miss Loretta Winters and Ed, thank you so much for this. Can you hear me okay? All right. No, I'm coming in here, at the end, close it out a little bit with a couple of songs. Thank you so much for having me once again. I want to say a couple things. A lot of this conversation is reminding me about a podcast that I'm the artist in residence of called Newsbeat. And we have one episode that's called The True Origins of the War on Drugs. So if I may start off with an a cappella of the first verse that I do in that podcast. Thank you again. So it goes, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees by the same who bringing in the poppy seeds. Yet they blame you, call it an atrocity. You a scapegoat, you ain't make the policies. See the bigger picture. Richer getting richer, slanging on the corner, but who's the real slinger and who's the real picture? Who you point the finger? Think you know the story, but really just the gist of let that one linger. It's not just unfortunate that the victims of this war are disproportionate. It's not some innocent mistake how they enforcing it, then treat the symptom but never the cause of it. Then they got the gall to say, slavery was so long ago, we need to move on so we can be level C. But if the human being who wrote the law is racist, what you think that law itself gonna be? So thank you. Just wanted to share that, and a little, not so much a shout out, but small mention of Harry Anslinger, who was the one who started the so-called war on drugs. Shout to Sophie's Bistro also. I see you over there today. And I have my shirt from last time, and I got to shout out the fine folks at Buy Weed from Women once again. Just check them out on Instagram and on their website. It's merchandise. That's what they sell, by the way, but it's a really dope company. Shirts, bags, and all that stuff. Do one short song, I believe. And yes, I'm gonna do one short song and close out. Thank you once again. Seriously, I really appreciate you guys. Lunch and learn, everybody. Yeah, make sure you come back next week. Even though I know, we're all on mute and everything. This is the part at the show. Normally, I'll be like, let me get your help. And when I point at you, say somebody. What you need? Somebody. Say what? Somebody, like that. All right. So Love ain't blind, but it's losing its sight. You see, weird's eyes and we ain't using them right. And if we admit it or not, we're influenced by hype. Whether it's choosing a wife or the music we like. See somebody on the tube with a mic and assume that he's nice. Got him on your iTunes that night, it's not right. But yo, that's the plight of the music biz. We need somebody. It doesn't matter who it is. Posters in your room of his. Only exclusive showing off now when before you only knew the hits. Soon as his career flopped, don't appear shocked. You hop on the next bandwagon that seem hot. And these slots get filled by any means. Trying to keep up with whatever the weather brings. Nowadays they get paid for saying anything. So platinum plaques don't mean crap like wedding rings. What you want? Somebody to hug, somebody to hold, somebody you could really grow old with, or somebody to love, somebody to lust, somebody just to talk on the phone with, or somebody to chill with, somebody to build with, somebody you could call your own. So what you need? Somebody say what? Somebody say what? Now, but it's losing its place. You know, we put it off and assume it could wait. And if we admit it or not, we got rules on we play. Whether it's the music we make or choosing to mate. See somebody that's cool and attractive and treat it like practice. Cause you're waiting for the total package. The front and the back end, the wallet or the pocketbook, the face and the clothes and the car that they driving to. Got an image in your head, you've been built into a 10, and you'll be damned if you let it go and settle now. So they could have a couple flames, they could have a couple friends, but they can't expect a ring or you to settle down. For now, it's all about having fun. Don't think about the next step when you at it, huh? And see you out of luck. All right, the last part, last hook right here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. So what you want? Somebody to hug, somebody to hold, somebody you could really grow old with, or somebody to love, somebody to lust, or somebody just to talk on the phone with, or somebody to chill with, somebody to build with, somebody you could call your own. So what you need? Somebody say what? Say what? Say what? Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hey, Silent Night, thank you so much. Everyone, once again, thank you for joining our Lunch and Learn segment. We will have one next Friday, and then we are going to take a break in the month of August. So join us next Friday with our guests and Jay Silent Night. If he's up for it, you can come back next Friday. And everyone, please have a great weekend. Enjoy the summer. Glad you could join us. Take care. Continue to network. I saw a question about August 21st. August 21st appears to be a hard and fast date. So we are expecting regulations to be published August 21st. And stay tuned. The next CRC meeting is August 3rd. August 3rd is the next CRC meeting. Do tune in. And again, stay tuned. Check out membership within the NJCBA. Check out membership within all of your local organizations like the NAACP. Support people like Loretta Winters and Nichelle Pace. Take care. We'll talk soon.